The moment a cop leans into your window and says, "Do you have any weapons in the vehicle?" most drivers freeze, and in that freeze, they say exactly the wrong thing. Some blurt out, "Yeah, I have a gun." Some say, "No," when they're absolutely armed. Some go silent, thinking silence is safe. All three moves can turn a 2-minute traffic stop into a felony investigation. I have reviewed over 200 body cam recordings of traffic stops involving firearms, and the pattern is identical every single time. The first words out of the driver's mouth determine whether that stop ends at the curb or ends in handcuffs. Drivers who respond with the wrong words, even honest, well-intentioned words, trigger escalation protocols that give officers expanded authority to search, detain, and arrest. Drivers who respond with the right words delivered calmly and precisely drive away. I'm going to break down 5 tactical countermoves for when that gun question gets asked. These are grounded in documented police training procedures and Supreme Court precedent. Each one is built for a specific moment in the encounter. Know which one to deploy and when. Stay tactical, stay composed, and let's get into it. This is tactical education only. For specific legal guidance, consult a licensed attorney in your jurisdiction. Counter move number 1. Never say the word gun, ever. Here's the officer's move. The moment you roll your window down before you even hand over your license, the officer asks one of the most consistent questions in law enforcement training. Do you have any weapons in the vehicle? It sounds simple, but what that question does is bait you into using language that triggers an immediate threat protocol in every trained officer who hears it. Here is the real situation. You are stopped for a broken taillight. You are a legal concealed carry permit holder. Your firearm is secured in the center console. You think transparency is the right call, so you answer, "Yeah, I have a gun." The moment that word leaves your mouth, everything changes. Body cam shows the officer's right hand moving toward their sidearm. Through the radio, the partner hears one word, "gun." Backup gets called. The tone shifts from a routine traffic stop to what officers are trained to treat as a potential lethal threat encounter. You just escalated the situation with 2 syllables. Here is the live exchange body cam captures. Officer, any weapons in the vehicle today? Driver, yeah, I have a gun. Officer, hand on holster. Where is it right now? Driver gestures toward console. Officer, hands on the wheel, do not move. Partner on radio. Occupant admits firearm in vehicle, approaching as high risk. Now watch the tactical counter in a recorded stop. Officer, any weapons in the vehicle? Driver, hands at 10 and 2. Officer, I'm a permit holder and I have a legally owned firearm secured in the center console. My hands are on the steering wheel and will remain visible. How would you like me to proceed? Officer's posture relaxes. Okay, appreciate that. Your permit on you. Same information, completely different outcome because of word choice alone. Here is why it works on you. You have been conditioned to believe honesty diffuses tension, and in most of life, that is correct. But the word gun is a trained trigger in law enforcement academies. Officers are taught to respond to that specific word as a potential lethal threat indicator, regardless of context. Your good intentions are not part of the calculation when that word hits. Your counter move is this. Say it out loud right now. Officer, I'm a permit holder and I have a legally owned firearm secured in this vehicle. My hands are on the steering wheel. How would you like me to proceed? Say it again. Officer, I'm a permit holder and I have a legally owned firearm secured in this vehicle. My hands are on the steering wheel. How would you like me to proceed? One more time. Officer, I'm a permit holder and I have a legally owned firearm secured in this vehicle. My hands are on the steering wheel. How would you like me to proceed? You said permit holder. You said legally owned firearm. You said hands on the steering wheel. You gave the officer control. Both cameras record that professional disclosure. That footage is your tactical evidence. Tactical summary. The word gun escalates automatically. The phrase legally owned firearm signals legal status and cooperation. Never let the word gun leave your mouth during any traffic stop under any circumstances. That counter move solves the language trap, but body cam footage shows what happens next in 9 states where you were legally required to speak before the officer even asked. Officers run your license within the first 60 seconds, and if your permit is flagged in the database, your silence just became a violation, and in some states, a crime. The next countermove covers the duty to inform trap that most permit holders walk into because nobody ever told them about it. Countermove number 2. Know your duty to inform law before you ever get stopped. Here is the officer's move. In 9 states and Washington, D.C., officers are trained to expect immediate verbal disclosure from concealed carry permit holders during any official encounter. Those states are Hawaii, Louisiana, Michigan, Nebraska, North Carolina, Ohio, Oklahoma, South Carolina, and Texas. In these states, you are legally required to inform the moment the officer reaches your window, whether they ask or not. Silence is not neutral here. Silence is a violation. In some of these states, it is a criminal offense. Here is the real situation. You are pulled over in Michigan. You have a valid concealed pistol license. Your firearm is in the center console. The officer walks up and asks for your license and registration. You hand them over and say nothing, figuring you'll mention it if asked. 40 seconds pass. Then you say, "Oh, I should mention I have my carry permit." Too late. Field analysis of Michigan traffic stop recordings shows a 40-second delay after officer contact has been treated as a failure to immediately disclose. First offense in Michigan, $500 fine and 6-month permit suspension. Second offense, $1,000 fine and permit revoked. Here is why it works on you. Nobody explains in driver's education which states require immediate disclosure versus which require it only if asked, so you assume staying quiet is the conservative play. In a duty to inform state, that assumption can cost you your permit. Here's the escalation path if you stay silent. You hand over your documents. The officer runs your license. In states like Michigan, Texas, and Arkansas, your permit is digitally linked to your license in the law enforcement database. The officer's screen shows your permit flag before they even walk back to your window. They know you are likely armed. You have said nothing. When the officer returns, "I see you have a carry permit. Are you currently armed?" If you say yes, you already violated duty to inform. If you say no and the firearm is present, you just lied to a police officer. You left yourself no good move. Your counter move. In a duty to inform state, disclose before the officer reaches your window, through a window cracked 2 to 3 inches. Before they walk up, you say, "Officer, before you ask for anything, I have a valid concealed carry permit, and I am currently armed. My firearm is in the center console. How would you like me to proceed?" Again, "Officer, before you ask for anything, I have a valid concealed carry permit, and I am currently armed. My firearm is in the center console. How would you like me to proceed?" One more time. "Officer, before you ask for anything, I have a valid concealed carry permit, and I am currently armed. My firearm is in the center console. How would you like me to proceed?" Your camera's timestamp shows you disclosed before contact. That documentation is your tactical proof of compliance. Tactical summary. In duty to inform states, disclose before they reach you. Before beats at contact. At contact beats any delay. Memorize which category your state falls into now. Not during a stop. You just handled the duty to inform trap. But what about the 30-plus states where you have no legal obligation to say anything at all? Most permit holders think silence is their safest move in those states. Field analysis shows silence creates its own dangerous trap, one the Supreme Court defined with devastating precision. The next countermove is built specifically for that scenario, and it is one of the most critical tactical pieces in this entire breakdown. Countermove number 3. Silence is not protected. You must say the words. Here is the officer's move. You are in a no-duty state. Arizona, Florida, Idaho. The officer asks, "Do you have any weapons in the vehicle?" You decide silence is the smart play. You say nothing. You stare forward. That feels like invoking your rights. Under Supreme Court precedent, it is not. Here is the real situation. In Salinas versus Texas, the Supreme Court ruled 5-4 in 2013 that simply remaining silent in response to police questioning is not the same as invoking your Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination. The court held that if you want Fifth Amendment protection, you must explicitly claim it. Silence alone does not constitute invocation. If you go silent when asked about a firearm, that silence can later be used against you as evidence of what prosecutors call consciousness of guilt. Your non-response on body cam becomes evidence that you were hiding something. Here's why it works on you. Most people believe remaining silent means staying quiet. The pop culture version of pleading the fifth looks like folding your arms and saying nothing. Salinas eliminated that assumption. The Fifth Amendment's protection is not self-executing. You must explicitly invoke it using clear, unambiguous language, or you have not invoked it at all. Your countermove is this. When asked about firearms and you choose not to disclose beyond what is legally required in your state, say these exact words. Officer, I am invoking my Fifth Amendment right to remain silent. Say it again. Officer, I am invoking my Fifth Amendment right to remain silent. One more time. Officer, I am invoking my Fifth Amendment right to remain silent. That explicit invocation captured on both cameras creates the constitutional record that silence alone cannot create. Under Salinas, those words are your protection. Silence is not. If your documents are stored near the firearm, add, Officer, my registration is in the glove box near a legally owned firearm. How would you like me to retrieve it? You disclose the safety-relevant fact while maintaining your Fifth Amendment position. Tactical summary. Stay calm, stay tactical, stay in control. Silence is not protection. The words are the protection. Either disclose strategically or explicitly invoke your Fifth Amendment right out loud. Never leave the legal gap that silence creates. That counter move handles what to say when asked, but body cam analysis shows what frequently happens 60 seconds later in documented stops. After a proper disclosure, officers make a request that sounds like standard procedure, one most permit holders agree to without realizing they just opened a legal door that cannot be closed. The next counter move is built for that exact moment. Counter move number 4. For my safety is a request, not an order. Here is the officer's move. You've disclosed properly, used the right words. The officer nods and says, "Okay, I appreciate that. For my safety, do you mind if I secure your firearm for the duration of the stop?" It sounds professional. It sounds reasonable. It sounds like something a cooperative person would obviously agree to. Right here is where most permit holders surrender a critical tactical position. Here is the real situation. The moment you say, "Sure, no problem," you have voluntarily consented to an officer handling your property. In documented field cases, officers who asked to just secure a firearm, then asked to inspect it, ran the serial number, checked for outstanding reports, and in some cases discovered other items during the interaction that led to additional charges. What started as a safety measure became a gateway search, made possible entirely by your consent. Here is the tactical distinction. There is a legal difference between a request and an order. "Do you mind if I secure your weapon?" is a request. You have the option to decline. "I'm securing your weapon for officer safety. Step out with hands visible" is an order. You comply. The tactical move is asking which one it is before the situation advances. Here is the tactical exchange. Officer, do you mind if I secure your firearm for the stop? Driver, Officer, are you asking me or ordering me to allow you to handle my firearm? Officer, I'm just asking. Driver, I appreciate your concern. My hands will remain visible. I do not consent to any searches or handling of my property. I'm happy to follow any lawful orders. No consent given. Both cameras documented it. Stop concluded without incident. Your countermove. I appreciate your concern for safety. My hands will remain visible. I do not consent to any searches or handling of my property. I'm happy to follow any lawful orders. Again, I appreciate your concern for safety. My hands will remain visible. I do not consent to any searches or handling of my property. I'm happy to follow any lawful orders. One more time. I appreciate your concern for safety. My hands will remain visible. I do not consent to any searches or handling of my property. I'm happy to follow any lawful orders. Tactical summary. Every request is optional until it becomes an order. Ask which one it is. That question creates a documented record and forces legal definition of what is happening. Stay polite. Stay precise. Stay in control of what you consent to on camera. You just neutralize the safety request. But here is what happens next in documented stops when an officer decides to escalate to a move that is fully legal and creates new exposure if you do not enter it correctly. After you decline the consent request, they issue an order that Pennsylvania versus Mims fully authorizes, and the moment you comply, the tactical landscape changes completely. Countermove number 5, the exit order and what happens when you step out. Here is the officer's move. Under Pennsylvania versus Mims, established by the Supreme Court in 1977, a law enforcement officer can order any driver out of a lawfully stopped vehicle for officer safety. No additional suspicion, no probable cause required. When the officer says, "Step out of the vehicle for me," you are legally required to comply. The moment you step out, you have entered a new phase of the encounter with different legal rules governing everything that follows. Here is the real situation. You've done everything right, disclosed properly, declined the consent request. Now the officer says, "Step out of the vehicle." You comply. But as you exit, the outline of your holster creates a visible contour under your jacket. Under Terry versus Ohio, that visible bulge gives the officer reasonable suspicion that you are armed and justification for a pat-down. You disclosed the firearm 40 seconds ago, but this pat-down is a separate legal event with its own trajectory. Where your firearm goes next depends on what you say and do as you step out of that car. Here is the escalation path if you exit without tactical positioning. You step out in silence. Officer conducts a pat-down, feels the firearm, removes it, inspects it, runs the serial number, places your firearm in the cruiser for the remainder of the stop. You've lost physical possession of your legally owned property, and recovery depends on how the stop resolves. Your earlier disclosure didn't prevent this. Your silence at the moment of exit made it easier. Your countermove. The moment the officer says, "Step out before you open the door," "Officer, I'll comply with your order. I want to remind you I've already disclosed my legally owned firearm and permit. As I exit, my movements will be slow, with hands visible at all times. Exit slowly. Hands visible. Once outside, my hands are visible. I do not consent to any searches beyond what is lawfully required." Again, my hands are visible. I do not consent to any searches beyond what is lawfully required. One more time. My hands are visible. I do not consent to any searches beyond what is lawfully required. Both cameras capture every word. That is your complete documented record. State tactical variables matter here. In Colorado, courts have ruled a firearm in a center console is considered within reach even after you've exited the vehicle. In Texas, with a license to carry, your firearm can remain in the console unless ordered otherwise. In Michigan, without a permit, the firearm must be unloaded in a locked case and not readily accessible. Know your state's storage rules before the stop, not during it. Tactical summary. Comply with exit orders, but do it verbally documented. Announce your movements. Reference your prior disclosure. Explicitly decline consent to searches. Pennsylvania versus Mims gives them the exit order. It does not automatically authorize a search. Those are two separate legal thresholds. Treat them as such on camera. Here is the field rule that covers every scenario when that gun question gets asked. Be polite, not talkative. Cooperation is not conversation. Your composure is your single greatest tactical advantage. The less you say beyond what is legally required and strategically necessary, the fewer openings you create. Stay calm, stay tactical, stay in control every time those lights flash behind you. Here are the 4 countermoves every driver must know. First, am I free to leave? Forces the officer to legally define the stop. Second, officer, I am invoking my Fifth Amendment right to remain silent. Third, I want to speak with an attorney before answering any questions. Fourth, I do not consent to any searches. For gun-specific stops, add, officer, I'm a permit holder, and I have a legally owned firearm secured in this vehicle. How would you like me to proceed? Right now, say those 4 responses out loud 3 times each. Practice until they come out calm, clear, and automatic. The moment red and blue lights flash in your mirror is not the time to figure out your words. That work happens right now when the stakes are 0. Screenshot these 4 phrases and keep them in your notes app. In a high-stress encounter, even trained responses slip. One tap of backup cost you nothing and could change everything. This is tactical education only, not legal advice. Laws around firearm disclosure, storage, and police authority vary significantly by state. Always consult with a qualified attorney in your state for your specific situation. If this breakdown gave you tools you didn't have before, hit like right now. Subscribe to Traffic Stop Tactics and ring the bell so you never miss a new breakdown. Share this with every permit holder you know. The gun question gets asked every single day. and most people walk into it completely unprepared. Before your next traffic stop, there is more tactical intelligence you need. The next video gives you counter moves for scenarios we didn't cover here. It is on screen right now. Watch it while this training is fresh. Tell me in the comments, where in the world are you, and what time is it there? Know the tactics, own the encounter.